Castellorizo is a Greek island and municipality located in the southeastern Mediterranean. It lies roughly 2 kilometers off the south coast of Turkey, about 570 kilometers southeast of Athens and 125 kilometers east of Rhodes, almost halfway between Rhodes and Antalya, and 280 kilometers to Cyprus. Castellorizo is part of the Rhodes regional unit. The island has become more popular in recent years among tourists looking for an isolated place in the Dodecanese, thanks also to the 1991 Oscar-winning movie Mediterraneo by Gabriele Salvatores, which is set on the island during the Second World War. Name and etymology. The island's official name, Majesty, means biggest or greatest, but at only 11.987 square kilometers in area, it is the smallest of the Dodecanese. The name, however, refers to the fact that it is the largest of the small archipelago. This name was used in antiquity, but is now rarely used in Greek, the name Castellorizo being common since the 12th century. There are several hypotheses about the origin of this name. Castello derives from the Italian word castello, meaning castle. There is some argument on the second part of the name. The arguments are centered on the following possible origins of the element rizzo. Rizzo being derived from the Italian word rosso, meaning red, either from the reddish color of the rocks of the island, or from the reddish color of the castle at sunset, or from the color of the coat of arms of the great master of the Knights of Rhodes, Juan Fernandez de Heredia, which stood above the gate of the castle. These arguments are widely discredited as the rocks on the island do not contain any red pigment and the name Castellorizo predates the arrival of the knights, Rizzo being a corruption of the word Rhodes, one of the ancient appellations of the nearby island of Rho. If this is correct, the island's modern name is actually an amalgam of the separate island names, Castello and Rhodes, Rizzo being the actual Greek word rhizon, meaning root, as researched by Greek historian I.M. Hatzifotis, to signify the foothill or rizovuno on which the island's original castle was built. It has gone by several different names in its history, including Castellorizo, Castelrosso, Chateau Rouge and Turkish, Isakizilisa, the former deriving from the island's official name in Greek, the latter meaning Red Castle, a translation of the Italian name. Geography. Castellorizo is the easternmost Greek island and is situated in the eastern Mediterranean. It lies about 2 kilometers from the Anatolian coastal town of Kaz, more or less halfway between Rhodes and Antalya. Cyprus is about 280 kilometers to the southeast. It is 6 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide, with a surface of 9.2 square kilometers. It has a triangular shape, and is oriented from Ni to SW. The island features 3 capes, Stefanos, Nifty and Ponenti. Between the first two there is a wide and accommodating bay, the island's main harbor, where one finds the only town on the island. Cape Stefanos, the nearest to Anatolia, is 2,250 meters south of the modern Turkish town of Kaz. Cape Nifty lies some greater distance from the Anatolian coast. The island is mountainous, with high and steep coastlines, which become more difficult to access moving west. The soil is composed of limestone, and produces only small amounts of olives, grapes and beans. On the island there is no source of drinking water. The municipality of Majesty includes the offshore islands of Rho and Strongwili as well as several smaller islets. It has a total land area of 11.987 square kilometers. Geology. The island's geology is almost exclusively limestone laid down at the Mesozoic-Cenozoic boundary. As a result of the lack of significant flora covering the island, the landscape shows many features of karstification. There are a number of notable sea caves, including the sea-called Blue Grotto, which is much larger than its namesake in Capri. Exploration undertaken in 2006 by members of the SELAS Caving Club of Greece has revealed vertical caves in many parts of the island. The deepest found so far was surveyed to a depth of 60 meters in March 2006 and will be the subject of further exploration in the future by the same team. Description of the island. The houses of the town are slender and characterized by wooden balconies and windows of the Anatolian type. Behind the waterfront, many houses are still in a ruinous state. At the entrance to the harbor on the east side, stand the single-story remnants of the former Italian government house, erected in 1926 by the Italian architect Florestano di Fausto, who also designed some of the most important buildings of the Italian period in Rhodes. Nearby is the island's former Ottoman mosque, which dates from the second half of the 18th century and which has been restored and reopened as a museum since 2007. From here starts the town's quay, which runs along all three sides of the harbor. The central square, Platea London Castellorizo, lies at the midpoint of the eastern side, near the vessel dock. On the opposite side of the harbor one has a good view from this vantage of Perimeria, the western quay, and the monasteries of Prophet Isilius and Agia Triada, the former now an army base. Above the quay on the eastern side there is a pathway which leads to the Castle of the Knights. Of it remain the curtain-walled part of a square tower, the remains of a cylindrical tower at the east corner, and toward the sea another cylindrical tower. A Doric inscription carved in the rock attests to the existence of an earlier fortress here during antiquity. Inside the tower there is a large covered cistern. Ascending the steps on the eastern side of the town, one reaches the suburb of Horifia, where there is a square surrounded by the Church of St. George, with a high dome of Byzantine type, and the Cathedral of Saints Constantine and Helena. It has three naves divided by monolithic granite columns from the Temple of Apollo Lykios in Patara. The columns carry ogival arches. Further east is the small bay known as Mandraki, the secondary harbor of the island. West of the town, beyond the summit of the island known as Vigla, stands Paleo Castro, the island's ancient acropolis. This fortified elevation has classical origins. Its plan is rectangular and measures 60 by 80 meters. In its interior stand an ancient tower, built with square limestone blocks, and large water cisterns. Carved on the base of the castle, there is also a Doric inscription, dating back to the 4th or 3rd centuries BC, with references to Megist and its dependence on Rhodes. On the east side there are remnants of a gateway, or propylaea. Transportation. The island is connected with Rhodes, Piraeus and Kos by ferry. Passenger ferries frequency is as follows: Castellorizo, Rhodes, Simi, Tylos, Niceros, Kalymnos, Piraeus 2 trips per week. Castellorizo, Kaz 1 trip per week. Air connection is provided by Olympic Air, which operates from Castellorizo Airport 4 times per week. There is one small bus in service on Castellorizo and it is used to collect tourists from the airport. Archipelago between Turkey and Castellorizo. There are many islets in this area: Volos near Kalkan, Okendra, Thernacia, Prasinisi, Ro, Dragonera, Marathi, Strongwili, Dacia, Alimentaria, Kekova. Besides many rocks and cliffs, the most important among these islets is Kekova, not inhabited, which has an area of 4.5 square kilometers and faces the Turkish village of Kalikoy. All these islets were subject to dispute between Italy and Turkey until 1932. According to 1932 convention between Italy and Turkey, all these islets, with the exception of Ro and Strongwili, were assigned to Turkey. History. The island was colonized by Dorian Greeks who named it Megist. Inscriptions found at the foot of the knight's castle confirm that during the Hellenistic period the island was ruled by Rhodes, and formed part of its Peraia. The Rhodian sent an overseer, or episvates, to monitor events on the island. During the period of the Byzantine Empire, Castellorizo was part of the Eparchy of the Islands, the capital of which was Rhodes. In 1306 the island was taken over by the Knights of St. John Hospitaller of Jerusalem, headed by Vlachos de Villaret. They were on the way from Cyprus to Rhodes, which was conquered 3 years later, becoming the center of the Crusader state. They restored the castle, which was thereafter used as prison for disobedient knights. Around 1440 the island was occupied by Sultan Jemal el-Din Yusuf of Egypt, who destroyed the castle. 10 years later it was conquered by Alfonso V of Aragon, King of Naples, who in 1461 rebuilt the castle and dispatched a governor. Naples retained possession of it until 1512, when it was conquered by Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I. On the 22nd of September 1659, during the war over Crete, the island was conquered by Venice and the castle was destroyed again, but the Ottomans were able to regain it again soon after. Between 1828 and 1833 Castellorizo joined the Greek insurgents, but after the end of the Greek War of Independence it came back in possession of the Ottoman Empire. In 1912, during the Libyan War between Italy and the Ottoman Empire, the inhabitants asked Giovanni Battista Amelio, chief of the Italian occupation forces in Rhodes, for their island to be annexed to Italy. This was refused, and on the 14th of March 1913 the local population imprisoned the Turkish governor and his Ottoman garrison and proclaimed a provisional government. In August of the same year, the Greek government sent from Samos a provisional governor supported by gendarmes, but they, too, were expelled by the inhabitants on the 20th of October 1915. On the 28th of December 1915, the French Navy led by the cruiser Jeanne d'Arc occupied the island at the behest of a pro-French local party which feared Turkish reprisals. The French quickly blocked another landing attempted on the same day by a Greek contingent of Evzones. Turkish shore batteries responded to the French occupation by shelling the island. In 1917 succeeding in sinking the British seaplane carrier HMS Ben Micri. In the Treaty of Chevreuse the island was assigned to Italy and the Italian Navy assumed it from the French on the 1st of March 1921. But the treaty was never ratified. The Treaty of Lausanne confirmed the Italian claim on Castellorizo, and the island, under the Italian name Castellorizo, was then integrated in the possession of the Isole Italiane dell'Egeo. The 1932 convention between Italy and Turkey, which defined the sea border between the two powers, assigned all the islets of the small archipelago around Castellorizo except Rho and Strongylli to Turkey. During the 1930s it was a stopover for French and British seaplanes. During the Second World War, on the 25th of February 1941, in the course of Operation Abstention, British commandos occupied the island, but Italian forces from Rhodes recaptured it some days later. After the British occupation, fearing a German invasion, some of the inhabitants fled to Gaza in Palestine. When Italy capitulated to the Allies, the island was occupied again by Allied forces, and it remained under their occupation for the rest of the war. In July 1944, a fuel dump caught fire which spread to an adjacent ammunition dump, thereby destroying half of the homes on the island. Castellorizo was assigned to Greece with the Paris Peace Treaties, 1947. In May 1945 it was still under British administration, but on September 15, 1947 effectively came under Greek administration. The island formally joined the Greek state on 7 March 1948 together with the other Dodecanese islands. The island has become more popular in recent years among tourists looking for an isolated place in the Dodecanese, thanks also to the 1991 Oscar-winning movie Mediterraneo by Gabriele Salvatores, which is set on the island. Castellorizo was the only territory of the European Union where the solar eclipse of March 29, 2006 was visible in its totality. In 2011, the French ship Dignité Al-Karama, the only member of the Freedom Flotilla that managed to approach Gaza, refueled at Castellorizo. The ship was warmly received by the inhabitants, some of whom remembered about the shelter the island's inhabitants had found in Gaza, then under British control, during World War II. Demographics and economy. The population and the economy reached its apogee at the end of the 19th century with an estimated 10,000 people residing there. At the time, Castellorizo was still the only safe harbor along the route between Makri and Beirut. Its sailing ships traded products from Anatolia against Egyptian goods, and carried Anatolian cereals to Rhodes and Cyprus. On the island there was also a flourishing production of charcoal. The fishing industry, mainly sponges, was important too. At the dawn of the 20th century, the decay of the island's economy set in, accelerated by the decline of the Ottoman Empire and the deportation of the Anatolian Greeks in 1923. In the late 1920s the population of the island had dropped to 3,000, while about 8,000 inhabitants lived abroad, predominantly in Australia, Egypt, Greece and the US. At the time the town had 730 inhabited houses, while 675 were already empty, and many ruined. The population, according to the 2011 census, now stands at 492, all living in the town of Majesty. The municipality also includes the islands of Rho and Strongwili, both without permanent inhabitants. Many of its emigrants live in Australia where they are known as Kazis. Culture. Castellorizo's inhabitants had characteristic traditions, partly influenced by the Muslim tradition. There were at least 3 types of women's dress, which used brilliantly colored fabric, and women wore necklaces, brooches, pendants and earrings made from ancient Venetian or Byzantine gold coins. The women's festive dress consisted of 1 or more long silk blouses. The most external one was closed on the front by 6 large filigreed gold or silver buttons. These buttons were shaped as a half-sphere depressed in the middle. For the lowest one was hung a small chain with a cross, a pair of short pants whose lower part was made with good quality material quilted with gold thread, a sleeved jacket made with brilliant colored silk or velvet opened at the front, another long underskirt laced with gold thread also opened at the front, a large scarf made with 3 or 4 silk strips quilted with gold or silver thread. It was tied very low on the sides like a loose belt. A large velvet coat decorated with gold and silver lace on the hems and on the back, with asterisk fur lapels. It was always kept open. A woolen cap. A quadrangular wrinkled silken shawl, decorated with relief flowers and fringed hems, colored in white, red and deep blue. Folded diagonally, it was fixed above the cap, with its longest angle falling on the back almost to the ground, while the side edges were folded on the front or put over the shoulders. The socks were woven with multicolored wool or a silk. The shoes were shaped like tip slippers, and were made of velvet or silk. They were laced with gold or silver thread and shorter than the foot. The other types of dress were similar, but not so lavish and without fur decorations. The girls' dress was simpler. Single and engaged girls, unmarried women and widows were also distinguished by dress. religion, customs and superstitions, the engagement, which was decided by the parents, and the wedding, which lasted 15 days, occurred through prescribed and curious ceremonies, having symbolic and poetic meaning. Weddings were celebrated on Sunday, in the church of Ius Constantinos, and an announcement on the main square invited the whole city to participate. Also, baptisms and funerals had well-established rituals. On December 31st and on New Year's Day, groups of children carrying small cardboard boats adorned with ribbons and small flags go around visiting houses, stores and coffee shops, singing songs with good wishes and receiving coins and wheat cakes, while the elderly exchange visits. On the morning of Ius Basilio's Day, coming back from liturgy, the men customarily throw a pomegranate hard against the walls of their homes, wishing for abundance and happiness for the family. The more seeds that are spread around the rooms, the more luck the family will have in the coming year. The day before the feast of Ius Elias on July 19th, first the children and then the men jump into the sea and wear the wet clothes the whole day. Those who do not want to participate are sometimes forced to do so. On Easter, the liturgy of the resurrection takes place in the open at midnight, the faithful bearing candles. As soon as the bells start ringing, the young people let off fireworks, and the people tell each other the ritual words, "Christ is resurrected." Then everyone enters the church and lights his candle from the holy fire held by the priests, and then goes home to light the fire in the fireplace. On Easter Monday, the whole population gathers in the main square, and they remain the whole day eating, drinking and singing. In the past, single girls had to stay at home, but they were allowed to stay in the entrance, where they sang and played with swings. On May 1st, at dawn, all the girls of the island, in groups, each one carrying a jar, went to get water outside of town, but they were not allowed to speak a single word during the route. This water was supposed to bring good luck to the family. Everyone washed herself with it that day, and every utensil and wall of the house was splashed with it. When a girl became engaged, she filled a crystal carafe with it and brought it to her future mother-in-law, who gave her in return a special cake and an odd number of gold coins. When a child became seriously ill, a woman with knowledge of prayers against the evil eye was invited to his home. She drew signs of the cross on the body of the child with a thurible filled with embers and branches of the olive tree which had been gathered in the church on Palm Sunday, pronouncing the following words, "Christ came, then he laid down his stick and chased away the snake and the bad neighbor from our home." After this exorcism, the woman would throw the content of the thurible into a bucket filled with water, and then count the pieces of wood which did not burn. This number was said to be equal to the number of persons who were supposed to have enchanted the sick child. The enchantment of the child was sure, if the olive leaves burned with a loud crackling sound. When a man was going to emigrate, gentle, sorrowful songs were sung to him by his friends. Notable people: Georgios Mavros, politician. Twin towns, sister cities. Castellorizo is twinned with Perth, Western Australia, Antalya, Turkey. Cinema and popular culture. Mediterraneo was filmed on the island. Castellorizo also lends its name to David Gilmour's instrumental track Castellorizo from his album On an Island. He stayed on the island in the early 1990s with his wife Polly Sampson and many close friends. The music reflects the memories of the time spent there, and is a tribute to the friends who have since died.